Haircut in Tokyo. A short story. Hotels catering for Japanese businessmen and salarymen are generally Spartan, with tiny rooms with only a futon and no furnishings, a small window sometimes, and one communal bathing area on the ground floor. These hotels are places for sleeping and nothing else. The businessmen or salarymen sit in the equally tiny bars along the street with seating for only 5 or 6 in each until late, drinking, before going to their rooms to sleep. There are usually brothels or love hotels nearby too, which is an accepted accoutrement to the businessman or salaryman's life, but it is far from glamorous, and it was my observation in the time I was working in Tokyo on an extended trip that for most such men, their business was a grind, the pressures heavy, and it was alcohol that kept them from despair. I would feel embarrassed because my venue for business was a spacious 5-star apartment attached to a private onsen. My company had put me up in what I can only describe as a junket. It was luxurious far beyond my needs, although I was not complaining. I'd been to Japan once before as a tourist with a backpack on a budget 10 years previous, and saw the country camping in tourist hostels and by train. This time I was seeing another Japan. I had taxi credits on the company and meals. The room of first-class Japanese interior design featured a large screen theatre, heated toilets, and a drinks bar equipped with fine liqueurs and spirits, complimentary. More than that, my schedule was easy. I was casual. My Japanese counterparts tended to be tightly strung and were, I could tell, caught insipid by my accommodation. Once I met one of these businessmen, Mr. Tanaka, at his businessman hotel, and I saw his cramped conditions and meagre allotment. We tried to talk at a bar serving battered octopus, takoyaki, but went back to my apartment after the karaoke started. "Wow," he said when we walked in. "This is where you're staying?" "It's all on the company's tab," I explained. "I'm working for the wrong company," he joked, but it was a jest to soothe his envy. To overcome the contrast, Japanese style, we would go to the onsen, disrobe, and do business naked in the hot waters, an arena of common relaxation and free speaking. As it happened, Mr. Tanaka was the right man to be meeting. We quickly established that we had the basis for trade and contracts, and both our companies would be content. He took me for lunch one day. This was towards the end of my time there, and we were, by that stage, finalising deals. Later, by taxi, we drove him home to his low-grade hotel. He revealed to me that he was planning a visit to the nearby red light area that evening and asked, out of hospitality, if I would like him to show me around. I thanked him and declined. For whatever reason, though, I didn't feel like going back to my apartment. In its luxuriousness, its 5-star fittings, it was only faux Japanese in a sense. I could sit there that evening and watch movies and not even know I was in Tokyo. Instead, I walked to see some of the street life around Mr. Tanaka's hotel, other than the red light area, the dinky bars, the 7-Eleven, the gambling shops, pachinko. Eventually, hoping for coffee, I went into an establishment where Japanese men sit playing what I call Japanese chess, some game I know nothing about and have only seen in Tokyo. It was a busy place with music playing, and waitresses brought out plates of rice cake confections. Shortly, a woman sat down beside me at the counter. "Hello," she said. "You speak English?" "Yes," I said. "I like to practice my English," she said, and introduced herself as Sakura. "It means cherry blossom," she explained, smiling. She was perhaps in her mid-30s with bobbed black hair, dark eyes, Japanese symmetries. "You don't need to practice," I smiled back. "Your English is perfect." It was. From this outset, I would say she was fluent, but she wanted to talk. And from the outset, she told me about her husband. He was a theatre director. "What do you do?" I asked. I'm a mime artist, she said, although I'm practicing that too. A mime artist? I'm not very good, she apologised. Not in the top class. Practice, I agreed. At this point, she decided to peel, quarter and eat an imaginary apple. I watched her. She took the peeler in her hand and looked the apple over. I love apples, she said. She cut it up and then ate a quarter. By the time she was chewing it, I was convinced. You're good, I said. My teacher is 1,000 times better than I am, she confessed, as if she was a complete failure. Where are you from? She asked. She wanted to know all about it. We bought food and talked until late-ish, and then she offered to drive me back to my apartment rather than finding a taxi. You wait here, she said. I'll go and get the car. Next she arrived back in a new metallic blue Lexus LS V6, invited me in and drove me home. When we drove up, she was impressed with my lodgings. I thought better of showing her the luxury apartment, though. She dropped me off and thanked me for all the English conversation. The following day, she rang me through the hotel desk and asked if I would like to see a play. My schedule, as I say, was easy. The play, in a compact theatre in a back alley, was in Japanese, of course, and was more dance performance with masks and exaggerated gestures than a play with a plot, as far as I could see. Is this one of your husband's productions? I asked. She thought the question was humorous. No, she laughed. He's a big name. This is not his sort of thing. It was, in any case, avant-garde in my measure, but visual, and I tried to make intelligent remarks to Sakura afterwards. To be honest, not only was there the Japanese language, but the whole vocabulary of movement, signal and illusion in the play was entirely lost on me. I didn't have many intelligent remarks to make. During the play, one of the women performers had enacted a type of tragic death swoon with her eyes and her fingers. Sakura was able to mimic it to perfection upon a single scene. Then, to impress me, she pretended walking up to a vending machine, purchasing a bottle of drink and drinking it as she talked. What's the secret to being a good mime? I asked. There's no secret, she said, taking another sip of the imaginary drink. Just practice. I watched her. She convinced me again. You're good, I said. All the great mimes go mad, you know, she then told me. Do they? Why? The secret of miming is, she then confessed, you have to open yourself up to spirits. The great mimes do. It drives them mad. Spirits? Everything has a spirit form. The mime conjures them into reality. The play we had seen was, she explained, a type of ritual theatre, an invocation. She finished the drink and walked across to put the spirit form of the bottle in the recycle container, as if it was a solid reality and not her own conjuration. How's my English? She asked, walking back. Better than passable. You're fluent, I said. I met her semi-regularly for several weeks after that, right up to the time I flew home. She always let me know she was married. The basis of our meetings was, ostensibly, to practice her English. She came to my apartment one day driving a new Toyota Crown Signia, and when, on this occasion, I invited her inside for the first time, she appreciated the opulence. This is very nice, she said, looking around. Your company can afford this? Apparently. All expenses paid. She had not the slightest interest in my company or my business. Do you play golf? She asked. No. Good, she said. My husband plays golf. How long have you been married? I asked. I married when I was 17. He was 36, she said. And then she added, he's a brilliant theatre director. I'm sure, I said. A few days before I was to fly out, she arrived again, this time in a new red Nissan Infiniti. Since I was leaving, she proposed we celebrate with plum wine. She was an attractive, engaging woman with fluent English, who was, I thought, unconventional in a deliberate and quite cultivated way. At the same time, there was a sadness about her, but that is just because the Japanese are sad people. Plum wine might sound like an innocent tipple of springtime, but in fact it is potent serpent water. The Japanese distinguish between different types of inebriation. Sake induces a different state to beer, for example, and plum wine is purported to have its own lucidity. Before long, after several rounds, she took the liberty of kicking off her shoes and stretching out on my bed for comfort. "You know," she said, looking at me, "your suit is terrible. You need a Japanese tailor. I can take you to see a good tailor." "What's wrong with my suit?" I laughed. "It's dreadful," she said, being friendly. "It's not that bad," I protested. It was, I thought, brown, quietly spoken and effective. "What do I see when I walk in here?" she said. "A 5-star apartment and a man in a 2-star suit. Japanese style versus Western bad taste." The Japanese are notoriously snappy dressers, but also notoriously polite, and so it was unusual for them to make forthright comments. But I took her point and smiled. "Really," she assured me, "I will take you to my husband's tailor." "Where is your husband?" I wondered. "Probably with his mistress at a love hotel," she said. I did take her point, though, and reflected that Mr. Tanaka and the other businessmen and salarymen I had met, all of them, were well attired. They may have had bad rooms, but they had first-class suits. I was the schmuck in the bad suit that insulted the exquisite decor. "I'm flying out on Thursday," I said. "I don't have time for a new suit this trip. Maybe next time. Or I'll invest in a better suit once I get home. I swear." She settled for this. We drank some more, and then she sat up and said, "This is a private onsen." What she meant was that, unlike public facilities where there is no commingling, we could go downstairs and take an onsen together, drunk, under the midnight sky. This is what we did. The night was frosty black. The air had bite, but the mineralised waters were warm and a silent steam hovered on the surface. We undressed in separate changing rooms, then met at the pool and quickly climbed in. The frosty black night was washed out with city glow, but we could still lay back into gazing upward as if there was an abundance of pristine stars. As we lay there, after the silence of the steam, without looking away from the heavens, it was then that Sakura said, matter-of-factly, "I steal cars." I thought about this for a long moment. "Do you?" I said. "Yes." I thought for another long moment. The water was pleasing. The nakedness was natural. "Whose cars are they?" I asked eventually. "I don't know." There were numerous things for me to consider at this point, but I said, "What do you do with them?" "I drive them." "I know, but where?" "I just drive around. Then I leave it somewhere and catch a bus home." There was only one other thing I needed to say. "Why?" "It helps me mime," she said. I thought about this as well. "How do you break into the cars?" I then wondered. "Ah," she said, "that's an old mime's trick too. You just need the right key." And she raised her hand from the water and held up an imaginary set of car keys that she jiggled. She looked at me. "You need a haircut," she said. "Do I?" I laughed. "And a new suit." "Okay. Where can I get a haircut?" "I'll take you to a good barber tomorrow. she promised. Your husband's barber? She laughed. Good heavens, no. After the onsen and plum wine, I crashed into sleep. She was gone when I woke up. The next day I called a taxi rather than have her collect me and arranged to meet her in a place of her selection, the basement of a large department store, which basement hosted a vast array of delicacy pickles free to sample. Pickle sampling is a sophisticated endeavour in Japan. There was a crowd. She wanted me to sample a particular pickled turnip. It was special to her. It was the prize pickle made in the village where she was born. After this, and coffee, she escorted me to the barber. The gentleman, perfectly groomed, knew no English, so she explained to him in Japanese the type of cut, style and length I required. I climbed into the chair. The cut began with a good spray of fragrant water all around my head. Closing my eyes, I became reflective. I'm really glad I met you, you know, Sakura, I told her. It's a pity I'm flying out tomorrow. You could show me around more of Tokyo. I didn't get to see much of it from my apartment. It's a big city. I like the pickles, I added. The barber started up his electric clippers. It was fascinating, I then went on, to meet a mime. I've never met a mime artist before, I admitted. What an interesting woman. You might think that your teacher is 1,000 times better than you, I told her, but I think you're very good. Had I been staying long, I said, I would have liked to see her mime troupe in performance, or perhaps some theatre production by her husband. Then I laughed. Your English is as good as your miming, you know, I said. You're fluent. The barber combed my hair forward and took out his scissors. I suspected he was deliberating about the asymmetries of a non-Japanese head. The Japanese haircut, by and large, is a standard operation because the Japanese man is inherently handsome. There is no need for cunning cuts to disguise misshapen features. I felt I needed something more than a standard trim in that case, but due to the language barrier, my fate was left to whatever instructions Sakura gave the man. I could only be passive. When he combed my hair back and moved to around my ears, I opened my eyes again. Where was Sakura? She had gone silent. I looked for her in the barber's mirror. Then, eventually, I found her. She had left the shop and was out on the street. There was a grey-silver Honda Acura, brand new, parked outside. I watched her as she took out her imaginary keys, opened the car, and drove it away. I didn't see her or hear from her after that. I flew out the next morning, arriving home with my bad suit and my Japanese haircut.